Hey there, boys and girls of the YouTube world. If you love mullets and you love muscle cars, you're going to want to stick around and find out how we got this 1967 Camaro Supersport awake after sleeping for 15 years and doing one-wheel peels. Well, he is a plumber, so I guess I'm not surprised by the plumber's tape. Man, you can't weld good. Weld a lot. And that is nowhere near in phase. You can see some wrinkles in the frame rail. This car has been hit in the rear. It's rusty right there. There's some sketchy wiring on the fuse panel. Hey, did you know that we're giving this thing away and $3,000 cash? Head over to mortske.com for more details. Or you could win $20,000 if you don't want this LS swapped OBS. Plus, we're giving 5 runners up $100 a piece. So head over to mortske.com for more details. We got a different one for you today. This is a 1967 Camaro. This is a friend of ours, a subscriber of the channel. It was his dad's car. His dad passed away. This car's been sitting for 15 years. It does not look like it. He's got her all washed up, threw some new tires on. But anyway, he reached out and he said, hey, would you be interested in getting this car ready for me? I'm a plumber. I'm not a mechanic. So he thought we looked like we knew what we were doing. So that's a good job on our part for faking him out. But anyway, let's take a look at this thing. Let's get her up in the air. Let's get her all serviced up so that he can put many more miles of use on this thing and get her back on the road for the first time in 15 years. The other reason we want to get this thing up and going and out of here is because it's too nice, and Duff will jump on it, or we'll run into it with the forklift, or who knows what, but we don't want to chip that candy apple red paint. So first things first, it's a 67. It's got the wing windows and no marker lights, front or rear. He's pretty sure it's not a factory SS car, and that the hood was added on, and that it was an automatic 6-cylinder car, possibly, but we'll do a little research on that later. He said he doesn't love the Keystone mags. They also say Grand Prix on them, but he just wanted to put some tires on it to get it rolling, and maybe we'll figure out some tires here. He'll figure them out in the future. We interrupt your regularly scheduled shenanigans to bring you this Mortske Minute. This Mortske Minute is on Keystone. No, not the beer. This is on Keystone, the maker of Keystone Classic wheels. Well, Keystone Classic wheels were popularized by Dick Landy in 1964 and later the Sox and Martin racing team. Keystone's history dates back to 1947 when Virgil Benton, who owned a small chrome plating business, addressed a problem he saw in rural California regions. Sandstorms were wreaking havoc on vehicle chrome components such as bumpers. Benton had convinced local shops and insurers in the Ontario, California area to let his business re-chrome these components instead of just replacing them. In the 1950s, he began straightening bumpers as well and expanded the business into the Midwest and Northeast. By the mid-1960s, he ventured into the wheel market. And by the late 1960s, Keystone Classics became a mainstay in the wheel industry. Krager acquired them and still offers them to this day. Now back to your regularly scheduled shenanigans. So the story is, his dad got it all painted up and nice, and then got an engine rebuilt, put it together, only drove it a handful of times, and then it sat. It's got the SS steering wheel. It is a bucket seat car. It's got the console, got the 4-speed in there. Tachometer on the dash. Oh yeah, we got the Camaro floor mats. Got the wing windows etched with the devil with the diapers on and his bow tie for a belly button. Pretty cool 80s stuff. It's got some square mirrors I don't really care for. Oh, it's got the matching Camaro mud flaps. This thing is super, super straight. Very nice car. I'd clean up the exhaust tips if it were me, but other than the mirrors and the exhaust tip and the wheels, this thing's pretty good. Got the spoiler on the back. Taillights are different between 67, 68, 69, but I couldn't tell you the differences. Just an all-around really nice car. Duff, you want to open the hood for us? I thought the 350 didn't even come out until 1969, but what do I know? What do we got? He did say he put a new battery in, so we don't need a battery sponsor. This Interstate is from January of 2025, so she's new. It's got headers, of course, HEI, chrome valve covers. It's got the old Edelbrock Torquer 2 intake. The braided up radiator hose with the anodized ends. And, same on the fuel line. A chrome thermostat to go with the open element chrome air cleaner. Looks like she's a manual brake, manual steering car. We'll probably check these belts over as well. Everything rubber should be looked over. I'm guessing we should just go ahead and get rid of those radiator hoses and belts, but We'll check with him first. Air cleaner element looks good. Looks like there's an Edelbrock under there. Usually those things are pretty conducive to sitting, so we'll clean that up a little bit. Go from there. Let's get her up in the air and take a look. Let's get a look at the bottom side of this thing and see all the sins it's hiding after 50 years of doing muscle car things. Well, he is a plumber, so I guess I'm not surprised by the plumber's tape holding the license plate on. I think he needs the right bracket for that. This valance has seen some damage over the days, so has the core support. And the K-member's got a little dinger in here too. Oh yeah, she's definitely seen some Dukes of Hazzard stuff. That's the beauty of headers, how nice and low they hang. It is a drum brake car, but it's got newer brake hoses. We'll hit all the grease zerks and get everything serviced up here and check the wheel bearings. It's got some newer shocks in it. Looks like the steering box has got some leaks in it. Look at how tight that oil filter is to the headers. Good grief, and they're even dinged clear. The clutch return spring, I don't know how these work. I'm not a clutch guy, but it looks like that clutch rod should go further through the clutch fork. But anyway, look at that spring. Goes all the way up there and hooks on the other side of the engine stand. I don't think that's right either. It does have 010 on the block, so it should be a newer 350. Looks like it's missing the inspection cover. Not a big deal, but they're nice to have on there. Keeps the debris out of there. It does have a muncie, and she's got a few leaks to it. I think you mentioned the shifter wasn't exactly ideal. Yeah, she's due for a rebuild. There's a little bit of slop in there. You can see they did a real nice job of cutting a hole in the floor, but they duct taped it back up to seal the transmission tunnel. Just things to look for. Somebody has put floor pans in it, which is not surprising for these cars. Some of the leak might be the speedo cable here. We will pull the plug on that muncie, make sure that thing's full as well. Of course, it's a muscle car, so it's got to have glass packs. Kind of looks like the pinion seal might be wet. There's also a little bit of play in the drive line, so maybe it's going to need a U-joint here at some point. Got a 10-bolt rear. We'll pull the plug on that, make sure she's full. I'm pretty sure only the 6-cylinder cars came with this mono leaf. He's got some traction adders, or I don't know what they're called, add-a-leafs. So I'm guessing it was a 6-cylinder car. A V8 car would have had a multi-leaf. Still got the park brake cables. That's good on a manual transmission car. New shocks back here as well. Looks like that rear brake hose is pretty dated. Maybe we'll see if we got one of those and we can throw on for him. Underneath this car is actually really solid. Like I said, floors have been done. The valances are kind of banged up and mudded up a bit and repainted. The rocker's got a few blemishes here and there, but structurally the sub rails, super good shape, super solid car. Obviously it was a 6-cylinder car and it's been converted to a V8 and a 4-speed, so there's some nuances with that, but otherwise it's a pretty dang good car. We're definitely going to drain the fuel and inspect the fuel tank, get some fresh gas in it, change the oil. We'll pull the plugs out, look in the cylinders because this is a pretty fresh engine. We'll put some oil in there, see how all the plugs look. All of that good stuff while we got her on the lift. Give her a good once over, service her up good for Andy. So what I'm going to do is disconnect the fuel line. We'll replace that chunk of rubber that is stiffer than a wedding, you know what. Looks like there's another chunk over here. And we'll get that tank all drained out. 15-year-old gas is no bueno. I know you don't like pulling fuel, but come on. Got a little 12-volt clickety-clack pump trying to pull that stinky stuff out of the tank. It's bad. It's right. There we go. Oh, there we go. Yeah. Now we're cooking with gas. We'll definitely properly recycle this stuff for sure. However it is that you do that. I don't know. But it goes to a company that does it for sure. We're following the EPA's rules. I just hope it's not a full tank because I'm guessing that's like 16 gallons and I got a 2-gallon bucket and a 5-gallon bucket. Got a new roll of 5/16 hose to replace the rotten stuff that was on there though. Well, by my rough calculation, we had about 6 gallons of bad gas in there. Speaking of bad gas, somebody's trying to light a small block Chevrolet on fire through the carburetor back there. Hey, it's his birthday. 77. Make sure to tell him in the comments below.
Happy birthday to you!
Anyway, got some new fuel hose installed. Let's go up to the front and put a new chunk of hose up there as well. So we haven't covered it before. Basically anything that's rubber should be replaced. He's already done the tires. The seals are going to dry up in the brakes and the engine and all that stuff. Hopefully we can save those because those are a little bit more difficult to replace. But fuel hoses, a lot of the times these things probably never been replaced in the entire life of the car. But anyway, there's usually a rubber chunk back at the fuel tank so that you can make a connection back there. And then obviously the rubber is in there for vibrations, which engine and the body move separately. And then the fuel line is attached to either the frame or the body. So there's a chunk of rubber in there to take up vibrations. And another reason I'm going to show you this fuel hose up front here is because I believe they're different between 6-cylinder cars and V8s, because V8's got the fuel pump way up front, 6-cylinders a little bit further back. And this thing's got a super long chunk of rubber hose in there that we're going to replace, and that is because it was a 6-cylinder fuel line. So you can see our fuel pump down there at the very front of our V8 engine. Obviously a V8's shorter than a 6-cylinder, but the fuel pump's further back on a 230 or 250, I believe. You can see our fuel hose starts all the way back there at about the number 6 spark plug and then runs up along the inner fender and down here. If this was my car and I was super concerned about it, I would replace that line and run a steel line up here, but it looks like they did a pretty decent job of routing it, and we don't want to get too big of a bill racked up for this guy, so we're just going to put a new chunk of rubber hose in there, route it properly. It should be good for just as many years as this last one lasted. You know, this thing's got a nice paint job. We don't get that in here very often. Check this out. You know what we can get at mortske.com? Fender covers. Look at how dusty that thing is, because that's how often I use it. That's how often we get something nice in here. But get yours at mortske.com. And for every $1 you spend on fender cover, flannel, t-shirt, ball cap, decals, anything else at mortske.com gets you entered for a chance to win the LS swapped OBS, the slob, and $3,000 cash. Or if you're not into OBSs or Chevrolets or 5-speed manuals or LS swaps, you can get $20,000 cash. So head on over there. We only got a few weeks left. Get entered to win that thing. And if you don't win that thing, you got a chance at winning $100. We got 5 runners up giving $100 a piece. So get yourself fender cover if you got a nice car like this 1967 Camaro. Next on the list is the rubber hose coming from the fuel pump all the way up to our Edelbrock here. This is a 1407, so she's a big dog. She's a 750 and manual choke. But anyway, they make a nice adapter that bolts onto the end of this Edelbrock, and it sneaks underneath here, and it's steel all the way up to here. And then I think we'll just either bend up a line or see if we can find a stock steel line that comes from the fuel pump up to about here, and then we'll just have a nice little short chunk of rubber, and maybe we'll even leave a fuel filter in there. Definitely gonna put a new one in there. But underneath this stainless steel braided stuff, it's just rubber hose, and you can see right here, you can feel it, I can feel it, as it's kinked off right there. So I don't like this stuff. We're gonna go ahead and get rid of it. We might actually wire his choke open. It's not hooked up to anything right now, and you definitely don't want it to come closed on you when you're driving, so we might address that as well. Anyway, this stuff, I don't like it, it's gone. I just got off the phone with the customer, and he said, go ahead, get rid of those radiator hoses, so we'll get some of those ordered as well, and then we'll throw some no coolant in it while we're at it. God, these things are terrible. Got the old nasty fuel line off. Check out those faux anodized aluminum connections. Just kidding, there's a worm drive hose clamp underneath. As you can see, there's rubber inside of these, and it's getting pretty brittle. There you go, finished product. It's got that adapter from the Edelbrock. We got an inline steel fuel filter, and there's our stock line. Like I said, this customer is a plumber, so hopefully he can appreciate that. I wish we could go with a stock steel line all the way up to the Edelbrock. I don't know why they don't make something like that. I suppose there's differences for having spacers and high-rise intakes and so on and so forth. But this is a lot better than the old braided stainless and anodized garbage, and super easy to service. Plus it's a new filter. I think we're pretty good to go on the fuel system. I might stick the old endoscope down the fuel tank to see what it looks like in there. Hopefully it's good. I'm sure it is. That fuel was just stinky. It wasn't all rusty. Fuel pump is probably going to be bad a few miles down the road and be weeping out of it, but that's something that he can replace on his own, and I hate to throw one on there if it doesn't need it. Same deal with the Edelbrock carburetor. We could open it up and rebuild it, but we're going to run it first, see how it runs. If it runs like crap, then we'll rebuild it. No point in doing a bunch of unnecessary work. Ready to change the oil. This thing's supposed to be really low miles, so hopefully this comes out super, super clean. But check this out. I was looking at the drain plug and some other stuff. And by the way, the owner did say, hey, I give you permission to rip it apart. It's my dad's car. It's not going anywhere. It's not for sale. So do your thing. I like what you do. So what I'm getting at is it's free game to rip on this car. And I was going to do it anyway, just a little bit. But it's actually a really nice car. But check this out. Oh, I love headers. Check this mess out here. No doubt the headers were starting to fail, so somebody got in there and patched them up. But man, you can't weld good. Weld a lot. Another reason I despise headers. Oh yeah, that's gonna be an exhaust leak for sure. Manifolds, they don't do this. They don't rust out, crack out, and they fit. And oh, you can see the bottom of this collector is scraped a few times. Ouch. You'd think on an application like this they could make some decent headers. You know, there's a million Camaros. I think this is the same subframe as a Nova, so lots of cars, but good grief, even changing oil is gonna be difficult. But let's grab a filter and drain the oil. Come on, don't be full of condensation. Oh yeah. That stuff looks like brand new. Ah, missed opportunity. Should have saved it and dumped it in my Model A Roadster and burned it. Oh yeah, that's what we're doing. The old Model A uses a ton of oil. You can tell the customer, we'll definitely credit him for half an oil change, seeing as how we're reusing it. Oh yeah, that's the good stuff. That Model A Roadster, I think I've probably put, oh gosh, probably 5 tanks of gas, so 500 miles. And I think I've put at least 4 quarts of oil in it. So, yeah, it's a quart to every 100 miles. So no point in putting new stuff in there is what I'm getting at. Looks like new coming out of the filter too. Should probably spin that filter on the Model A. Just kidding, we're not that cheap. Yeah, we probably are. If you've got a 67 to 69 Camaro or are looking to get one, go check out this 1967 to 1969 Camaro restoration guide. A gentleman that's into these told me about it, and it's a really good read. A lot of information on there about the different options and the packages and the different wheels and tires and drivetrains and transmissions and interiors and all that kind of good stuff. So go ahead and check that out. I'll definitely not remember to put a link in the video description, but also there's information on the body tag on that thing. So according to this thing was built the 3rd week of August. It was Marina blue. It did not have a vinyl top. I would have to go off the VIN number to see if it's a 6-cylinder V8, but we know that it was already a 6-cylinder car. And it was not an SS, it was a factory sport coupe. It had standard black bucket seat interior as well. That's what we got from the body tag. There you have it. Go check this book out. The original Chevrolet Camaro 1967 to 1969 restoration guide. I got mine off of the Amazonia. Using the fancy Greta unapproved fuel jug and pump. Check this out. The old SS fuel caps held on with a cable. So you don't lose it or nobody seals it. I don't know. Comment down below if that's a factory deal or if guys just did that so the SS wannabes wouldn't steal their fuel cap. Since we got the go-ahead, I can't wait to take these radiator hoses off. God, they're so terrible. Can't believe people pay money for these things. Oh, of course that went in the pan. Oh, yeah, that's way better. Even though I think I got it on backwards. Let's find out. Hey, there we go. All kinds of clearance for the belt even. And we can get rid of that heater hose that's zip tied to the alternator bracket, chrome nonetheless, to prevent the radiator hose from rubbing through. Way better. Oh, those radiator hoses look so much better. Let's top her off with some fresh 50/50 green coolant. I also noticed there's no heater hoses hooked up to the heater core, so likely that leaks, and that's a real pain to swap those out. So good luck adding heat to this thing at some point if you need to, Andy. It's also going to be a little bit more difficult to bleed the cooling system because of that. Usually I'd hook a heater hose to let the air out, but we're just going to have to do it the old-fashioned way. Trying to figure out what's going on with this V-belt. I'm guessing that's overspray that caused it to be red from either when they painted the engine or when they painted the car. So let's go ahead and swap that out. It doesn't look like it's in bad shape. It ain't all cracked up, but it's the only belt on here, so it runs the charging system and the cooling system. So if that fails, it's going to be a bad day. Let's go ahead and swap that out of there. Check these headers out. Even got clearance for the spark plug boot. What a deal. I wonder if that's factory or somebody self-inflicted that. Also, I was looking at these engine mounts. Looks like they use 6-cylinder mounts and then just welded them in place. But it serves as a double function. It's not only an engine mount, but a clutch return spring mount. So that's good. Somebody has converted it to an internally regulated alternator, but They must have stripped out this aluminum. The bolt should just go through one way or the other and thread in there, but it's got a bolt all the way through with a nut on it. Also, the reason they got this chrome bracket up here is because they got fancy brackets to mount the alternator, because headers, you know, they screw up everything. Got to get custom brackets. Just needs a chrome alternator now, and then we'd really have something. Also, if you got to have custom mounts for your alternator, that means you got to have a custom length belt. So we can't just go look up what belt it needs. We'll have to see if we can't get a part number off of this. Ooh, it's a Gates. I can read it. 7355 it looks like. There we go. New V-belt installed. All right, now to do the fun part. We're gonna pull all the spark plugs out and inspect them, and then we're gonna spray some Croil down the cylinders and let it soak in there overnight. And you know, then this engine will be perfectly good when it's ready to fire up. But check this out. I was looking over at them, trying to see how miserable it was gonna be taking them out, because you know, headers. But check out this clutch linkage. You see that up there? That's where the linkage would end, and then it's just kind of spliced together there. Oofta. Who knows? But it gets better. Anyway, that giant hole right there around the rod, yeah, there's zero rubber around it. You could see the carpet if the camera would focus. Anyway, that's going to let some noise in there. So hopefully the header on this side doesn't leak. Otherwise, you're going to hear that in the passenger compartment. Got all the spark plugs removed. These passenger plugs were a pain in the butt. Had to put a socket on there, and then that's what the hex is at the end of the socket, is so you can put a wrench on it so you can get the spark plugs out, because there's no way you're going to get a ratchet end or extension on there. And they all look pretty good except for one. And that's number 4 here. She's pretty wet, and it does not smell like fuel. Hopefully it's not coolant, meaning a head gasket. Otherwise, they all look pretty good, a little sooty. I'm guessing that's from driving it in and out of the building, or because that 750 is way too rich for this small block. Headers even make it terrible to probe these things. God dang it, in the way. All right, everything looked good so far. I don't know if that's old fuel or what that was on that spark plug that it was wet, but everything looks good in there. No coolant, no fuel, no oil pulled up on the piston. Let me show you what we got. This thing looks brand new inside. Well, not brand new, but really nice. You can see it on the piston there. This thing is 40 over, and you can also see all the cross hatching. There's a little carbon on top of the pistons. I think they're just your standard dish pistons with grooves cut out for the valves. Also, the valves look like probably some 194, 150s, something like that. There's a little bit of room between them, but anyway, cylinder walls look great. Everything looks real nice in there.
Really nice.
So we're gonna go ahead and grab a can of P. Diddy here and spray it in all the cylinders. Are you kidding me? How am I gonna even spray it in there? These stupid headers are in the way. Have I ever told you how much I despise headers? All the reasons today. They get banged up, they hang too low, they don't fit, so you have to beat them up. You can't get spark plugs in and out. You have to have special brackets for your alternator. You can't spray lube in there. It's hard to get a camera in there when you want to look in there. The schlong didn't want to exactly reach around the old long tubes, if you know what I mean. All right, I'm just gonna try to get this in there somehow. Headers should be banned by the EPA and PETA and the FDA and the DEA and the FBI and the CIA and the NASA and the OSHA and the MSHA and the CPA and the MLB and the NCAA and the NCIS and the National Farm Bureau. Yeah, this isn't gonna happen. Spray and pray it is. Good grief. No, and then I lose the stick off my Croil. All right. You're just getting the open spray, full on assault aerosol. Whoop. I should probably be wearing glasses for this. Safety glasses. Let's be honest, the way the cylinders look, we don't need any of this. We're just doing it for all the Dwaynes of the world.
You're not doing it right.
I tell you what, we're only going to charge the customer for spraying in 6 of them, because that's all I think we're going to get. I don't know why anybody would let me work on their stuff, much less pay me to do it. Can you imagine paying DD Speed Shop to do something? Then I guess people pay flunkies to change their oil at Walmart. No offense to all the wonderful Walmart employees that change oil and tires and brakes that are watching this. It's the other ones. All right, now we let it stew. Check these bad boys out. Moroso cowl support rods in chrome. And then look at these little chrome doodads he's got on a bunch of the hardware. He's got them on the front of the control arm. That's kind of nifty. What's not so nifty is when somebody forgets to tighten said hardware before they put the chrome nut on it. Whoops. I guess we gotta take that nut off in order to tighten it now. Don't let us forget to do that. And you'll see it on the video and check it. Chrome won't get you home. I had an uncle that had a shirt that said that he would wear all the time. And now we're gonna pull the plug out of the transmission and check that that's full. Judging by the amount of oil on the outside, it's probably gonna be a little bit low, so we'll put a little 80-90 in there. I don't know. I'm thinking that's what's in these muncies, but we'll do a little research. I'm guessing this thing's either leaking around the old shift shaft seals or in between the case halves. It's hard to tell, but definitely needs some addressing in the future. We're also going to pull the plug out of the diff, check that for fluid level. It appears it's leaking out the pinion seal, so it might be a little bit low. I might even check to see if I got a pinion seal, because I don't like the way that rear unit traversal joint feels, and if we get that far, we might as well put a pinion seal in it, because she's a little moist around the old pinion, and you don't want a moist pinion.
Moist. You ever been to Moisty Grove?
Judging by the way the oil ran out of the plug, I'm guessing she's plenty full, so we slam that back in. He did mention they had some problems shifting it into reverse, and that he said he remembers his dad getting out and crawling underneath the car and it was stuck in 2 gears at one time or something, but I think that's all the slop between the linkage and the levers coming off the shifter. There's a lot of play right there and all of them, so I don't know if they're supposed to have bushings in there or what, but a lot of play in there, so I'll have to do a little research. It almost looks like there's a bushing on that one, so maybe we can put some bushings in there and clean it up, but I don't think it's the right shifter. It's the wrong handle for sure. We'll show you that later. And also it's rubbing against the floorboards there, so that can't help. Anyway, speaking of leaks, look at that speedo cable. Look at all that slop. How can that not be leaking? We're gonna take that loose for that reason and one more. Surely it can't be because of the headers. Yes, it is. There's the speedo cable, and that is the steering shaft. And I can't get it to focus, but anyway, the coupler there, or the steering shaft, has been rubbing against that speedo cable. And that is absolutely something you don't want. Going around a corner, you know, high speed, whatever. Turning, and then your speedo cable catches your steering and keeps you from steering where you want to go. Not a good feeling, so we're gonna go ahead and unhook the speedo cable and reroute that. I think they routed it over or around the steering in order to prevent it from getting burned by the headers, and now it's rubbing against the steering shaft. So hopefully we can get that finagled so that it doesn't burn on the headers and also is off the steering shaft, and then maybe we can tighten that up a little bit back there and hopefully keep that from leaking as well. Look at these goodies that Boom Tube sent with us. Found us a new old stock National 8611 seal, or a CR1513. He was so excited, he goes, "It's got the seal on it." And I thought it meant like the tape. And he goes, "No, like the kind that lives in the ocean." Anyway, new old stock, 1750. So, while I'm slamming that in, and we got a air filter for the Roadrunner, it's a Camaro brand, nothing but the finest.
Where qualified mechanics do quality work, they discovered K-Care, found only at Kmart.
Mojo is gonna put in a Moog 369 universal joint over here. This thing, she's pretty cooked. You could feel the grooves in the cross where all the needles sat. This one ain't so bad, but when you turn it this way, you can definitely feel all the grooves. And then we noticed, I don't know if it came out or somebody hit it with a hammer, but she's kind of damaged right there. So Mojo's gonna do some body work on it. You're gonna need a puller, bigger hammer. I've put a lot of pinion seals into my day and I've never needed a puller. Well, first time for everything. How the heck do you even clamp a puller onto that? How's that gonna work? Try number 2. Got the puller shortened up, see what happens. Get the old hooker, see if we can't get this seal out of there. There we go. Looks like CR seals green. Out with the old, in with the new. I got my seal in. How's this looking? Looks like a mess. Don't hit that with a hand. That's hot. Why didn't you say something?
It's hot.
Must be from that. Let me guess, that's hot too? Hopefully the new one fits. So I grabbed the wheels and tugged on them and pushed on them and pulled on them to make sure that all the tie rod ends and the ball joints are tight, and I also double checked to make sure all the cotter keys are in place, because if the cotter key comes out and the nut comes off, that's going to be a bad day on any of the steering and suspension. Now I'm going to go ahead and grab the grease gun, and we're going to hit all of them zerks on all them tie rod ends and ball joints, because these things were built back in the day when you could actually service something and it wasn't non-serviceable and you had to throw it away and put a whole new part on. You could actually grease it, so I'm going to do that now. Right there's the grinding that I was feeling that the joint was catching on. It's pretty chewy. Definitely need replaced. That one's even worse over there. But would you believe it? That isn't even the least of our worries. Mojo put the new joint in there. Then after he got it in there, then he told me what the issue was. I guess the customer never said there was a complaint, but surely there should have been. Check this out. So we got a flat surface sitting here, and that joint is sitting flat on said surface. And then usually you want them to be in phase. And that is nowhere near in phase. So I'm gonna go look for a 50-inch GM drive shaft in my collection, because this thing was definitely vibrating. All right, here we go. Also, this is why I don't do customer work, because it snowballs. And when they're like, what are you doing giving me a bill for $3,800 just to do an oil change? Well, you needed a pinion seal and a drive shaft, and I had to reroute your speedo cable and fix all the other screw-ups and the terrible wiring and put spark plugs in it and drain the fuel and put new fuel hoses and all that. But anyway, that's why Andy brought it here, because he knew I was going to fix all these dumb things that he didn't even know existed. I dug through my stash, no luck. Closest one I could find was 3/4 of an inch longer, and if we got to go ahead and cut that one down, we may as well just cut this one down and try rephasing it. So let's give her a whirl. Let me show you what we got going on here. We got our 14-inch super noisy, smoky, sparky chop saw here, and I got her blocked up with a piece of 1x6, because otherwise this yoke will hit on here. If you go ahead and notch out your circular saw for the yoke here, you don't have to have this board, but I refuse to do that. So anyway, we're gonna cut into this weld. Don't cut all the way through, just cut into the weld. This is a cast piece. Once you hit that cast, you gotta stop. And then we'll knock it out and then rephase it, weld it back together. In theory, and if nothing else, we ruined a drive shaft that was already a piece of junk anyway. But before we weld it, we gotta get it up in the car, and then we'll put a dial indicator on it to make sure that everything's true. And once we get it trued up, then we'll weld it in place. Easy peasy lemon squeezy. Right, Duff? Right. He's gonna supervise. All right, we're gonna grab old reliable. You wanna be careful not to beat on there and screw up that yoke like the last guy did on the other end. Just like that. I don't know, we call it the slug. You see how I just cut into the weld? And you wanna favor the tube side. That way you're not cutting into this slug. I'm gonna clean that up with the flap disc a little bit. Maybe run the reamer in there so it slides together a little bit better. Throw some lube in it and we'll pound it back together, hopefully straighter than it was before. You don't want to clean it up too much. You want a nice tight interference fit. So it's going to go in there hard. When we're knocking it in, you want to hit there and there if you can. You don't want to hit there like that guy did when he put it together the last time. Or who knows what happened, but it got schmucked pretty good right there. So, and also make sure you get it in phase. Get your U-joints lined up. Block of wood on the floor so you don't screw it up. A little croil for good measure. Now, make sure we get the joints lined up in phase, or at least closer than it was. All right, this is the fun part. I don't know, there's an art form or something to it, but getting these to slide together is not my area of expertise. So we're just gonna fast forward through that, I'm guessing. Wow, that actually went quite well. We're gonna set it on our quote unquote flat surface to see that they're lined up. And the way I do that is just kind of try to rock it back and forth. And it's right where we need to be. So I'm going to tap it together. Well, I'm not even going to tap it together anymore. We're going to go slide it in the car and see how straight it is. So in the ideal world, you'd have the giant lathe. So I don't have a lathe with a 6-foot bed, but you'd put this in there and you use the dial indicator and adjust it until your run out is as close as you're going to get it to 0. And then you put a couple spot welds on it and burn her into place. But because we don't know how to have that giant lathe, we're going to use this car as a lathe. So I'm going to go and see if I can find my dial indicator, and we'll spin this thing around and we'll go ahead and get her all trued up and tack her into place and then pull it out. Burn it in real good, slide it back in, should be good to go. And you don't need a dial indicator. You could use literally anything. You could bend up a piece of stiff wire, rigid wire, you can use a piece of flat strap, whatever. You just need something that stays stationary, and you got to spin that drive shaft around until it closes up that gap, and it's as tight as you can get it without having any run out, oblong, eccentric, offset, whatever you want to call it. So you don't need any fancy tools to make a drive shaft. You don't need a chop saw. You could do this with an angle grinder. You do need a welder though. So there's that. All right, here we go. Plan B. Hose clamp and some TIG welding rod. Hose clamp around the exhaust pipe. Length of TIG welding rod. Got her clamped in there pretty tight. Now we're gonna bend our rod right over. I'm gonna bend this rod so it's not quite touching. I'm gonna try anyway. It doesn't touch the whole way around, so that's kind of what we want. It's a start. Barely touches right there. So that means if we tap it there, it should get further away. So now what I'm gonna do is mark where it starts touching and where it stops touching, and then we'll find the center of that, and that's where we're gonna smack it. Right there, it starts touching. Oh, it's so close the whole way. Till about right there. So I'm just gonna give it a little bit of a tap in between those two marks. It's so close already, but we're just gonna mess it up just a hair. Still touches on that same stretch. I tried zooming you guys in, hopefully you can see just how close it is. I mean, it's really close. It is not perfect, but they weren't perfect from the factory either. Doesn't touch at all. And there's like barely any room for daylight in there. It's gonna be better than it was before, that is for sure. So I'm gonna grab the welder, I'm gonna throw a few spots on here, and then we'll take it out and burn it in real good. And this is the first time I've ever done this on a car. Usually I do it on a lathe. So this is a learning experience. You guys are learning with me, but we'll run her up to 120, 140 mile an hour after this, and we'll see where it's at. And don't worry about balancing. You don't need balancing. It's already balanced. Look at that. All right, we come this far. It's weeping out this rear seal, so we're gonna throw one in this transmission while we got that drive shaft out. If I can get her to pop out. We're committed now. Oh no. Why is this TIG wire here? This bad boy has not been out in quite some time. Jiminy Christmas. There we go. You're starting to come out of there. I know you are. There. Let's hope the old 9613 is the right part. Yep. Same seal on a Muncie versus a Turbo 350. Thank you, GM. And I think while we're at it, we're going to throw a new universal joint in the front of that drive shaft, just so it's all new. You saw what the rear U-joint looked like. The front had to go through just as many rotations. So we're going to stick them all in there. And that way his whole drive line's new, and a new pinion seal and a new output shaft seal as well. You know, since we replaced all the other braided and AN hoses, let's go ahead and replace this vacuum advance and the PCV one as well with some new pieces. much better. Before we throw in our new old stock Delco R44TS spark plugs, we're gonna crank this thing over. That way we can test out the starter and the battery cables and the connections and all that stuff, and we can turn it over freely a few times, and I'm gonna keep an eye on the oil pressure gauge till we get some oil pressure, so that way when we do fire it up, we know it's gonna have oil pressure. I know we could pull out the distributor and prime the oil pump with a shaft. I've got one of those, but I don't wanna mess with the timing, because that's the way that this thing was set up. It's supposed to be a pretty healthy motor, so if the timing's where it's at, I just want to leave it there. Anyway, long story short, we're going to crank it over until we get some oil pressure. I stuffed some rags in the headers so that hopefully we catch the coil and doesn't get all over his inner fenders. If not, I guess I'll owe him an engine bay horse job. But anyway, let's crank this thing over. Hopefully we don't have to put a starter in it. I do, however, believe we're going to be putting a new battery cable on it. Both the positive and the ground. The positive is cooked pretty good from the headers, unfortunately. Yay, headers! I've ever told you guys how much I thoroughly enjoy headers. Great horsepower. Can't say enough good things about them. All right, I don't know. We'll find out if this was a terrible idea or not. We're getting 30 PSI. I think that's good. I'm gonna give her one more crank just to make sure we got oil everywhere. All right, just to make sure we got oil up to the top end, I'm gonna pull a valve cover off. The customer wanted to know what number heads were on it, so we'll get that figured out too while we're in there. So 2 birds, 1 stone. He knows what he's got for head casting numbers, and also we make sure that we got some oil up in the valve train. And if his chrome valve covers weren't leaking before, they will be by the time I'm done with them. If only it had the wing nut style hold downs, then I could just take it off without any tools. Wouldn't that be great? You can fix your leaks on the side of the road without any tools. Although I don't love the aesthetics of these spark plug wire holders, they sure are convenient. Oh, you are kidding me. Oh, you gotta check this out. Chrome valve covers are killing me. They're the tall ones, and I can't get them to clear the wiper motor, so I can't get them off. Oh, it's because he's got studs. If he didn't have studs, if he just had regular bolts holding it down, I could maybe sneak it by. But if it was just a regular height valve cover, it wouldn't be a problem, because it's this tall chrome one, which maybe he needs. Maybe there's roller rockers under there or something. Who knows? Let's find out. But we're gonna find out on the other valve cover, because I'm not gonna mess around with taking studs out to get this one off, just to see if it's getting oil up there. The other side's getting oil, this side's getting oil. And both heads are the same casting number, I would bet. I'm an idiot, I should have started with that side. But this isn't a problem on my LS powered 69 because it doesn't have big silly valve covers. Good news is nobody's gonna steal your valve covers. So I don't know if I've ever told my story on T-handle valve covers. My uncle had a 59 El Camino with a 327. And a Saginaw 4-speed. And anyway, he parked it for the winter or whatever, or parked it for an extended period of time, and he went to go fire it up. And he's like, man, it smells like oil. And he opened the hood, and someone had stole his valve covers, and he said it was all because those T-handle wing nut hold downs. Somebody had opened the hood and helped themselves because it didn't require any tools. So that's another reason I don't run them, so people can't steal your valve covers. Hopefully that's not a thing anymore. Like stealing hubcaps. Wasn't that like a giant epidemic in the 80s and 90s? And stealing stereos, is that still a thing? I don't know. I don't have anything with a radio. I did get a radio stolen once, so. Anywho, rant over on wing nut hold downs. I have a drawer full of them. We should send them out with orders. Tell you what, if you place an order at mortske.com for a screwdriver, a magnetic screwdriver, we got a pile of different ones. We'll throw your name in a bucket for my T-handle hold downs. I got a pile of them. We'll send a bunch of them out. So put in your order that you want one of those things. I don't know why I save them, but yeah, just from me to you, for going to mortske.com. Not only would you get a chance at getting a wing nut hold down, you could get a chance to win an OBS $3,000 cash, or 5 runners up get $100 a piece. And if you don't want the LS swapped 5-speed OBS, we'll give you $20,000 cash. So that's a pretty good day. Anyway, head over to mortske.com for details, but the gist of it is for every dollar you spend at mortske.com gets you entered to win. So go buy some merch so that we can keep doing dumb things around here. Anyway, back to the hold downs. Let's see what we got behind these big tall chrome valve covers. Oh, what do we got? Stamped steel rockers, no roller tips, no full rollers. We got screw-in studs, Moroso, what do they call those, push rod guides. And it looks like valves are new, and yeah, everything looks brand new in there. And we got a casting number of 1-037. That does not sound like a GM casting number, so I did a little research, and that is a World Products 200cc Sportsman 2 head. So these are aftermarket World Products heads, so pretty good setup. Who knows what's underneath it? It's not a full roller setup. She's probably a pretty good running rig. It looks like we got oil on about half of them, so I'm gonna crank it over a little bit more until we get oil to all of them. Duff, let's take a look at the brakes on this Camaro. Spoiler alert, I did take the cover off the master cylinder and the rear reservoir is low. I don't know if that ties to the front or the rear of the car, but anyway, there's a leak somewhere in the brakes. That's what it tells us. So I got all the wheels off. I did not see a leak, but let me show you what we did find. Everything looks pretty much new in here, super low mileage anyway. The adjuster is free. The grease looks good in the bearings, but the wheel cylinders do not look like they have ever been replaced, or not in the recent future. So we're gonna throw some new wheel cylinders in there. It's strange that somebody was in here, they put new drums and new shoes and didn't put new wheel cylinders in. So since we're putting new wheel cylinders in, we're also gonna put some new hoses because they haven't been replaced since the frame was painted. But we don't know when that was, but it's been at least 15 years. And because we got a leak, it's pretty safe to assume that it was somewhere with a rubber component, so either a hose or a wheel cylinder, most likely the wheel cylinders. So we're just gonna go ahead and throw some new wheel cylinders in all the way around and some hoses. He talked about putting disc brakes in the front, so if he does put disc brakes, he can sell these front brakes to me or somebody else when he puts disc brakes on there, because these brakes are in really great shape. Oh yeah, that looks way better with a new wheel cylinder in there. And another good thing about inspecting the brakes and doing these wheel cylinders is you get to take a look at the axle seal on the back here. Both of those look dry, so we don't have to go ahead and replace those, because when those go out, your diff might run out of grease, and then also you get grease all over your brakes, and then you won't be able to stop, and then you smash up your car and you might die or worse. So. I can't stop! You don't want that, but I did find the culprit to our master cylinder being empty. When I pulled the pins out of our wheel cylinder here, this one was all wet, and there's a bunch of fluid in there. It probably isn't going to show up on camera, but anyway, this right rear wheel cylinder is what was causing it to leak, so we got that replaced. It's weird, these things are super old, crappy, they're made in USA, but they put all new brakes on it and didn't put wheel cylinders on it. Silliness. That's where it pays to check out your brakes. So anyway, everything should be good to go for them. A-okay for many more years of burnouts and braking on the old Camaro here. All right, well, we got the wheels off. We're gonna go ahead and take these mud flaps off. The customer said, go ahead and take those off, throw them in the trunk. I know they're hideous. They only cover up about half the wheel, so they're not protecting the quarter panel. Anyway, so we're gonna go ahead and get those out of there. And let me show you a couple problem areas on these Camaros. So right here, you can see some wrinkles in the frame rail. This car has been hit in the rear. This should be perfectly smooth, I believe, but there's a little bit of a wrinkle right there. Here's your shock right here. Also, they all seem to rust out right here. Doesn't matter how nice the car is, like this car, it's rusty right there, so that's a good spot to check. And then this is over on the passenger side, right here in front of the rear wheel. That's where they like to rust out. You can see somebody's boogered a patch in here, and then they undercoated it to kind of hide it. And there you can see that frame rail. This car was hit pretty hard in the rear at some point, and they kind of patched it up, but yeah, she's definitely been crinkled here. Something you want to look for on your unibody car. Now let's go ahead and get rid of these terrible mud flaps. Oh yeah, so much better. Next up on the deletion list, these terrible exhaust pipes with these terrible tips. They're usually screwed on, but these are actually tack welded on. And then the overspray on the rusty exhaust pipe really ties it together. We have to go ahead and get rid of those. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna cut them off a little bit higher in the quarter panel, and then I'm gonna go expand some tubing, or see if we can find some tubing, new exhaust tubing, that's the right diameter, and we're gonna sneak it out and dump it down here so it looks like it's got new exhaust. It's gonna be like a faux tip, like it looks like new exhaust. It also is a tip, but it's not really a tip. You guys get what I'm saying. It's budget friendly, and guess what? If he doesn't like it, he gets rid of it. And the way that the headers look on this thing, the way that they hang low, the way that they're rusted out, the way that they ruin everything, hopefully they go away, or he finds some different ones, and then he's gonna have to put new exhaust on it anyway. So we're not gonna go ahead and get crazy with this exhaust. We're just gonna patch it up and get rid of this terribleness, because he also admitted that he's like, that needs to go.
Get rid of the exhaust.
She peas and rice, the body match exhaust. They do not want to come off this car. Got it. It's so lovely. It's not even welded. I'm pretty sure that being a plumber that they brazed that on there. Plumber things. Oh yeah, doesn't that look way better than the lipstick on the ding ding over here? At least weld the tip on your ding ding to the paint line. Here's what we got going on here. I took a chunk of 2-inch and I flared it up so it slid over it. And then I had Chin help me eyeball it how far he wanted her down, and then we cut her off real nice and straight. And then we burned her on there so it don't fly off. Easy peasy lemon squeezy. That's the other funny thing about this race car. It's got them go fast World Products heads and headers, and then it's just got a little baby 2-inch exhaust all the way out the back. So I don't get the point of headers when it's just going to be choked down by 2-inch exhaust. But anyway, it looks way better now. That is how I like my exhaust, so you can barely see it. And the reason that I even put that sleeve on there is so that it's not dumping right inside the fender, so that it actually kind of gets it below the car, behind the car, outside of the car. So that's the only reason we did it. I'm gonna go cut the other side off, flare another chunk of 2-inch pipe, slide it up there, get her adjusted, and burn it in place. All right, we got the Keystone Classics back on there and torqued to 85 foot-pounds for our 7/16 lug nuts. I think we're ready to fire this thing up. I'm gonna go ahead and take some hot sauce and fill up the bowls on the old 750, and then we're gonna crank this thing over, keep an eye on the oil pressure gauge. I wanna get this thing running first, and then we're gonna get a hold of the customer and see if he wants to go a little bit further. I wanna test to make sure all the electrical is fine, like it's charging and that the starter works and the ignition works, but I would like to run a new battery cable on both sides. It shouldn't matter. We could do that right now. But also, while I got that positive battery cable off, I'd like to rewire it. It's got that amp gauge. I think that thing needs to go away. There's a bunch of added wiring that doesn't need to be for that. There's a bunch of added wiring on the alternator for a diode, and it's internally regulated, and that's kind of sketchy, and it's tied up there. There's some sketchy wiring on the fuse panel. It's missing the standard style clip that goes on the distributor, both for the tach and the ignition. Not so worried about the tach one. If that falls out, you just lose your tach. But if the ignition one falls out, you lose everything. And that's why I want to get the electrical where it needs to be. It's like the brakes. If you lose brakes, this guy's probably not going to come back to me, because he might not be coming back. Ignition, if the ignition dies on him in a parade somewhere, I'm going to get a bad name out of it, and he's going to be unhappy and all that. So if you lose ignition, you lose your car. You don't lose the car, but anyway, you lose the fun. It's not going to run anymore. So you want to have good ignition and charging and electrical. You got to have a good battery cables, alternator, starter, all that good stuff. So that's some of the stuff I want to fix, but we're going to get it running first. That way we know all this stuff actually works before we go ahead and rewire it and get a hold of him, see how deep he wants to get into this thing, because there's going to be some labor involved. It's not so much the cost, because it's really just a couple battery cables and some connectors and some wire, but it's all the labor. It's going to be, I would say, 2, 3, 4 hours into redoing that stuff, and that's if everything goes well. We could dig into it and it could get ugly, but anyway, we're gonna fire this thing up. Give you a little hot sauce so you can save on the battery and the starter and the battery cables that have been burned by the silly headers. When I was cranking it over earlier, I could hear the snap of a spark, so I feel like the HEI is good to go, and then based on experience, HEI, as long as it's got power, it's gonna work. So here we go. Man, she's got a little chop to her. Sounds pretty good. Burning a little oil and dust off the engine, but sounds good. No, it's not in here. It's because the tires are off the ground and there's just enough drag in that muncie to turn the rear wheels. Looks pretty good though. Unfortunately, this awesome old tachometer isn't working. But look at that, 60 PSI at idle, cold. Can't complain about that. What happened there? Did we run out of gas? Or is the fuel pump not picking up fuel? Surely it ran long enough to pick up fuel from the tank. Let's do a little digging. Oh yeah, the fuel gauge was not working. She is pegged over to full, so there's an issue there. Let's see if we're squirting any fuel. No fuel, kids. I think it's pretty safe to say that the old fuel pump is dried up, but we'll do a little digging. All right, we fired it up. It ran for probably 15 minutes. The fuel pump must be working. However, the accelerator pump is not working. When you go ahead and goose it off an idle, it stumbles. And so I shut it off and ran the throttle. Accelerator pump's not working. Before I did that, checked to make sure the vacuum advance is hooked up correctly, which it is, because I hooked it up, and I hooked it up the way that it was. It was hooked up correctly, and it is functioning. We hooked it up to another part. It's doing all the things. It does diesel when you shut it off, so we're going to do a little research there. It's sat at 190, so thermostat's doing its thing, but check this out. Silly chrome thermostat housing is doing what silly chrome thermostat housing is doing, leaking. Looks like somebody's been there before, so we should probably drain the coolant and put a factory aluminum style one on there, maybe a new thermostat and a gasket, because I hate leaks. But yeah, other than that leak and the accelerator pump, I think she's pretty much good to go on the dieseling. We're gonna let it cool down, fix all that stuff, probably throw some new battery cables on it because these ones are cooked real bad. And then we should be about ready to go for a test drive, I believe. Also, the fuel gauge decided to start working, so we're good there. All the lights work except for this right front headlamp. Guess what? They're T3s. It's the high beam and the low beam that aren't working, so I looked back here at the connector. Guess what? No ground hooked up. So we can hook that back up after we inspect what's hidden behind all that electrical tape, and hopefully have all the headlights, taillights, brake lights, blinkers, everything working. Even the lights for the aftermarket gauges are working, the indicators are working. She's pretty good. However, I was trying to figure out what that little light is under the dash. Watch this when I pull the headlights on. Boop. So that maybe is a high beam indicator. Nope, it's on with low beam and high beam, so at least we know what it's for, but it shouldn't be there. Also, the fact that it's hooked up to another wire that it's piggybacked off of that's jammed in the fuse panel is not very reassuring. Also, the amp gauge does work and the alternator is charging, so that's a bonus. All right, I'm gonna tear apart an Edelbrock, throw an accelerator pump in. They're not too bad. It's almost easier to take the whole thing off though and take the lid off because it's not real fun leaning over the fenders of a painted car to put it in there, but we'll get her done. There you go, Edelbrock is all torn apart. We got our new accelerator pump rubber put on there. Obviously that's rubber, so those dry up from sitting, so she's good to go. And while we had her opened up, we went ahead and checked around in there to see that there wasn't any junk or debris or corrosion or anything going on, and the Edelbrock looks good to go. That is the beauty of an Edelbrock over something like a Holly. None of the seals are below the fuel line, so they don't dry up like a Holly does and leak and cause fires and all that good stuff. The Edelbrocks are a lot more conducive to sitting around than most other carburetors. So if you got a car that you just drive seasonally or you're gonna leave it sit for quite a while, Edelbrocks are the way to go. However, I do not condone parking your car for 15 years. Well, I'm an idiot. It was not the accelerator pump. Got it all put back together. No accelerator pump action. Let me show you what we found. Obviously got it all taken apart. There's these two little squirters right here that fuel's coming out of when you push down on the accelerator pump. So you push down on that, fuel should come out there. So I figured, those are plugged up. Nope, pull it all apart, blew them out, everything looks good. There's a little check ball in there though, and the reason that check ball is in there so that when you aren't driving the car or you're just cruising down the road not using the accelerator, all the fuel doesn't drain back to that bowl, so the fuel stays up there while that check ball was stuck, and so it wasn't letting fuel by. I don't even know if we should call it a check ball because it doesn't really look like a ball. But anyway, that guy, we're going to clean it up. It's probably sticky for methanol. Throw it back in there. So tech tip, when you're working on an Edelbrock and think it's the accelerator pump, take it all apart, push down on the plunger, and see if it's actually the plunger, because this one still felt nice and supple, but I put a new one in anyway. Put it all back together, nothing. So live and learn from my mistakes. If I learn from all my mistakes, I should be one smart SOB by now. Well, now that it's cooled down before we fire it back up, let's go ahead and replace the positive battery cable going down to the starter here that got melted by the headers. Unfortunately, it's really not even that close to the headers, but you can see how it melted all that split loom around it, and you can see a whole lot of bare wire there. And that bare wire is going to attract humidity and corrosion. And when that battery cable lets loose, she's going to not want to start because it's not going to crank over. So let's go ahead and replace that. Oh yeah, that's way better. A long ways from the header, and we put actual heat shield on there. Shout out to Ann Kirby. I think we were working on Dirt Reynolds, the old 79 Trans Am, Tata 10th anniversary Trans Am, and we were having problems with headers. And so and sent us some heat shielding we haven't used. That was like 2 years ago, but good spot for it. That should keep that battery cable well protected. Yeah, it was just a matter of time before the corrosion got into that bad boy. And then same thing on the other end. This had that bolt-on clamp style, and how there wasn't a bunch of corrosion in there, I don't know. I mean, there definitely is corrosion in there, but I thought it would be worse. And of course the ground cable is the same deal, has that bolt-on end, so we're just gonna go throw a new one on there and get her all cleaned up so that she's got all the crank and power she needs for this high compression race car 350. There we go, new battery cables installed. This one's got this lead on it, so I am gonna rewire this thing pretty much, not from the ground up, but we had two of these terrible wires coming up here. One's for the amp gauge and feeding the car, and one's going to the alternator, I hope. Anyway, we're gonna dig into those. I called up the customer and said, hey, we put battery cables on and I would like to rewire these at this point. I said, it's gonna snowball, we're gonna get into it, I wanna get rid of that amp gauge, is that cool with you? He said, have at it. And I've watched your videos, I know what you do, I know it's gonna work, so here we go. I'm gonna get rid of the amp gauge. And the reason I don't like amp gauge is because all the power for the entire car's gotta go through there, which is fine. They did that for many years, from the 20s, 30s, 40s, all the way, Mopar was doing it into the 70s. But when somebody else that doesn't know what they're doing and doesn't wire it up very well, and the wires rub through, and you're going through a little tiny Chinese gauge, that's when cars burn down. And we don't want to burn this down because then we're not going to get any repeat business, and word will get around that we're a terrible business. So, sweet stacks on your silage hauler. Anyway, I'm going to rip out a bunch of wiring. I want to wire up the alternator better, I want to wire up the ignition better, but we'll see how far we get. First things first, Duff's got to hack up a lung biscuit, and we're going to get rid of that amp gauge and rewire the ignition. Let me give you a little wiring update, and if you guessed that it was going to snowball, you are correct. I knew as well. We just been tearing off a bunch of split loom and zip ties this far. So if you remember, we had two red wires coming from the battery. One I assumed was for powering up the whole car and one off the alternator. Well, things have snowballed. We still haven't even fished this one through. I'm guessing this is the original one that used to power up the car. I got the one that's powering up the amp gauge fished through the firewall, and I found some other mysterious yellow wire that's fished through the firewall. I don't know where to start. We got to start somewhere. So that is the ignition wire, the yellow wire. The red wire that's twisted around it is the signal for the alternator. So yeah, we gotta do something there, because those are two pretty critical wires. Remember that same yellow wire that's spliced into back there? Well, that goes to the ignition, and that is spliced into with that black wire up there. So we gotta figure out what's going on up there as well. And then our alternator wires come up on the inner fender. Obviously that red wire splices into that yellow wire back there, but the big wire comes in here and it's a mess. That used to be the connector for our externally regulated alternator, which is now internal, so we can get rid of that. This horn relay is got a mess going on, and there isn't even a wire going to that connector. Here's where the horns would be. They don't even exist. I don't know if it's on his list of things to do, but I'm not wiring up a horn right now. But I think we're gonna bypass whatever we can. I don't like these old relays. We'll get a new style relay. I don't know what they call them, solid state or something like that. But anyway, we're gonna clean up this rat's nest. I just took a ton of that split loom off here. And now I get to take about 4.5 miles of electrical tape apart, all so that we can basically run a new wire from there to our alternator, and then a new one from there into the car to power up everything. Electrical is fun, but it should be a lot better when we get done. Hey, I'm a poet and didn't even know it. Tech tip of the day: if you got to take off a bunch of loom or electrical tape wrapped around wires, get yourself one of these, a seam ripper. You can go on Amazon and get one, or go steal one from your grandma or your mom or your wife or your sister. They work real good. They get in there, they don't gouge up the wire, and they don't cut your hands. Super nice, super cheap. Good tool to have. Everybody should have one in their toolbox. Is that fun or what, Duff? One eternity later.
One eternity later.
But seriously, like 3 hours later, it's not perfect. It is infinite times better than it was. You won't believe this. So originally, the way these things are wired up, you got your battery cable, you got a positive, comes over here, hits your horn relay, comes off the horn relay and goes several different directions. One of those goes to the alternator or the voltage regulator, and then one goes up into the car. So what they did was they cut off the one going into the car, and then they ran a new one from the battery all the way up to that amp gauge, and then ran a new wire from there and up to the ignition switch. But they didn't really abandon the old wire. Well, they kind of abandoned it, but it's still there. They stripped off the coating up by the key and then just wrapped that new wire around it. This car had been running for I don't know how many years, with all of the power except for the cranking over, all the lights, everything running through a 12 gauge wire, just wrapped around. No soldering, no electrical tape around it, just hanging out there. No butt connector, no splice, nothing. Just wrapped around it, just friction. How this car didn't burn down, I don't know. But it's way better now. Let me show you. So here's how we got it wired up now. We got a heat shrink solder butt connector right there going through the firewall. I put a grommet through the firewall, which wasn't there before, and that runs over here to our junction block. So I abandoned the horn relay to the right, which was kind of doing this before, and we got that junction block. We got one wire coming from the battery, one wire going over to the alternator for our charging system, and another wire that comes off and goes into the original harness that feeds the key power, just like it was from the factory. The amp gauge is still in the car, but there is zero wiring going to it other than the lights. And then we had that terrible connector on the back side of this with the diode. I cut the diode out, wired the diode in directly. The diode is there because otherwise the alternator will backfeed the ignition and your car won't want to shut off. So that's what the diode's for. It needs to be there. So we got a new wire there. I wish I had an extra one of them little boot covers that goes over that, but I don't. And I probably could have hid the diode up in the harness somewhere else, but it'll be fine. It's better than it was, way cleaner. Then I cut off our old ignition wire that was wrapped around there. Ran a new wire that's got the correct connector that goes to the ignition up there so that that can't fall off. So with that ignition wire, I got rid of the wire that they had twisted around it to energize the alternator. And guess what? The existing wire to energize the old alternator that was externally regulated was still in the harness. So I just teed into that and ran that up to the alternator, up to our diode. And for some reason, they were getting ignition power off of the ignition wire coming up to the distributor for the tach power, which the tach didn't work anyway, so I got rid of all that, which they shouldn't have done. They should have just tied into the fuse panel. So everything should be kosher now. Let's test it out. What do you think, Duff? Is it going to fire up? You don't have much faith in my wiring, do you? Well, it's got to be better than all that stuff that's in there. Like, look at this. This was the ignition wire. That was the butt connector on the distributor. And then they had the electrical guillotine, the scotch clip, clipped onto it for the tach. Terrible. Here we go. Slingshot engage.
Slingshot engaged.
Well, should we go take her for a test drive, Duff? I know, you want to take our Camaro out, but we got to do some interior work. We're in the process of putting new interior this winter, but that hasn't happened, as you can tell. All right, let's go take her for a test drive. Well, hopefully the brakes work, steering, transmission, clutch, all that. Haven't tested it. Door's shut nice. Cold-blooded though. Made her to the gas pumps, didn't we, Duff? Maybe the fuel gauge ain't working. It was at 5/8 before, which I thought was a little bit high. Just taking a shot in the dark, but I'm guessing the sending unit is shot in the fuel tank. All right, short trip, see if we make her back home. Picked up a few bugs on the windshield, though. God, that is a cool hood to look down, though. If it were mine, I would have to get rid of this T-handle shifter, though. These cars are small, though. The seat bottom is shot. Definitely didn't test the park brake, nor are we going to. Oh, we probably should. Dang it, I hate those things. This thing is so mild-mannered. Little hiccup in the clutch, but the shifter works good. Steers great, stops great. Carb is working awesome. All kinds of oil pressure, temps running super cool. Duff loves that mirror over there that's just for looks because he can't see anything behind it. This thing is really good. Super nice car. Happy for him. He's going to enjoy this thing. glad we got the opportunity to work on it. All right, we're gonna do a little cruising and head back before we get too many more bugs on his windshield. What a great night for a drive. I think we got to mess with the clutch a little bit. You saw how the linkage was. I don't like it. It's got a lot of play, and it's got kind of like a catch to it. So we're gonna have to modify that rod or adjust it a little bit. The brake pedal is a little bit sloppy. The pedal's got to come out and be rebuilt, I think is what it is. But the idle's a little bit low. Got to turn that up. It does have some chop. It's super peppy. I talked to one of my buddies and he said, yeah, Clint was an old stock car racer. He said that's his old stock car engine. I don't know, I'm guessing they probably built it in the 90s at some point. So yeah, she gets up and goes. Looks good outside too. It is a nice paint color. Anyway, that license plate is covered in bugs, so I think now is a good time to just take it off because that looks hideous. All right, let's put her inside for the night. Works good though. So we snooped around in the car a little bit because Andy said that there was some pictures in there and other crap, so let's see what we got. I don't know if this is for the paint. Oh, there's some labor on there. $2,167 he got her painted for. And this is from 2000. So, oh, floor pans. So yeah, this is when they painted it. Well, not from 2000. It says 20 on there, so it's from post 1999. And 29 hours of labor, that's pretty, what's 725 divided by 29? I feel like that's pretty cheap labor. Here's some photos of when they did paint it. They're all kind of stuck together. I don't know what that's about, but anyway, looks like it was a blue car at one point. You can see a little bit of blue on the floor pans. Yeah, there it is, fresh out of the old paint shop. Looks like they just seam sealed and painted the floor pans. There's no date on the old Kodaks. Looks like there's where they sanded her all down. There's the back of the car. Andy and I were having a couple adult beverages the other night, and he said across the spoiler it used to say Randy, and that was not the guy's name that owned it before his dad. So yeah, interesting. I don't know if people were getting a little Randy in the back seat or who knows what. There's some more sand and footage. And there, yeah, again, it must have been a blue car at some point. It's got a lot of blue on the floor pans. Better than rust. There's just a bunch of car show stuff in there, plaques, names. The comp cam's installation instructions. Oh, here's the cam. It's a, I don't know. It's a 274H-10. It's got a lift of 490, it looks like. I don't know. It sounds like it's got quite a bit of lope, so you guys can check that out. If you're a cam guy, know anything about these cam cards, then comment down below with what you think it is. I think it's good. Here's all the information from Quality Machine. They're a pretty well-known shop up in Fargo, do a lot of race car stuff. This thing was balanced. The whole bottom end was balanced. There is the proof in the pudding that she was done up by Quality Engine. And there is the stickers to go with the cam. Speaking of stickers, we should stick a Mortske decal on that car. Get your own Mortske decal at mortske.com. And also, get entered for a chance to win the LS OBS that we're giving away now through June 16th. Not only get a chance to win that thing and $3,000 cash, but we're giving 5 runners up, giving $100 a piece. And if you don't want the pickup and you win, $20,000 cash. So you can't beat that. Head on over to mortske.com for more details. So there it is, a bunch of cool stuff that we found in the glove box of that car and the center console. But a lot of neat information in here. And yeah, it's always good to keep old pictures of your car around. Now we just need to find some pictures where it says Randy on the side. We interrupt your regular scheduled shenanigans to bring you this Mortske Minute. This Mortske Minute is based on Edelbrock. That's right, the Edelbrock that we all know has got a long running history. It was started in 1938 by Vic Edelbrock Sr. Now, Vic Edelbrock Sr. was born in 1913 in Wichita, Kansas. He was the son of a grocer. Unfortunately, in 1927, that grocery store burned down, and at just 14 years old, Vic had to support the family where he became a mechanic. Tragedy struck soon after in 1929 with the Great Recession, and in 1931, Vic moved to California to live with his brother and start a shop there. Business thrived, and in 1938, he bought his first project, a 1932 Ford Roadster. It was at this time he joined forces with Tommy Thixton to develop a dual-carb, high-rise aluminum intake manifold for the flathead engine. However, he wasn't happy with the original Thixton design, so he created his own slingshot design. They utilized 2 Stromberg 97 carbs and made about 100 of them before World War II. He also ran 112 miles per hour at the Muroc Dry Lakes. After serving his duties in World War II, he developed an aluminum racing head for the flathead V8 and released his first catalog in 1946. He had one of the very first engine dynamometers in 1948, which he used to develop his speed components. He also had a hand in the first streamliner to go 200 miles an hour. He also developed a tri-power intake for the newly released small block Chevrolet in 1955, and also later a 6.2 manifold as well. In 1958, he got a 283 cubic inch Chevrolet to create 1 horsepower per cubic inch with a new cross ram manifold that he developed. Unfortunately, Vic passed away of cancer in 1962 at the ripe young age of 49 years old. This is when Vic Edelbrock Jr. took over. Vic Jr.'s team developed the C4B, the Tunnel Ram, the Tarantula, and the Streetmaster manifolds. Edelbrock is currently headquartered in Olive Branch, Mississippi, and includes comp cams, Fast, TCI, Lunati, and more. Now back to your regularly scheduled shenanigans. It's the next day. This thing made it back. It drives really well. It's super tame. First gear is a little bit tall between the tires on the back and the 307 rear gears, and whatever muncie is in it first gear is a little bit tall for idling around like fairgrounds or stoplight to stoplight. So some 373s would really help that out, or maybe a deeper first gear in the transmission. But other than that, brakes work good, steering works good. The clutch, you push it down about 3 inches before it feels like clutch. And I think it has something to do with either the geometry of the Z-bar or the length of the push rod, either from the pedal down. We saw how messed up that was. So I want to play with that because, you know, you're going to have a lot speedier shifts if you're not pushing your foot down that far before you get clutch action. And also, like they all do, that silly thermostat housing is leaking, so I'm going to go ahead and swap that out. Every one of them leaks. I don't care what they are, so they should just quit making those. I buy OEM replacements from Rock Auto for those thermostat housings because I'm always looking for them. And they're super reasonable on Rock Auto, so that's what I'm going to do. We're going to throw a new thermostat in there. It ran super cool, had great oil pressure, so I think those are just a couple of things that we're going to fix, and then we're going to send it home to the new owner, of course, after DB washes the bugs off, because that's what DB thoroughly enjoys doing. Okay, maybe not.
DB not included.
Alright, got the trunk open. I wanted to throw his mud flaps and other parts that we're going to send back with him. Check out the trunk. I'm guessing Grandma's old Afghan. There's the car cover. We got the spare wheel with the cover. He does have the nice trunk floor mat. And a scissor jack. And a tire iron. And some duct tape. And some octane booster. And a quart of Napa oil. And guess what? Header gaskets. So I'm guessing he's been dealing with a header leak. Looks like that one's been replaced. And then there's a spare new one in there. Oh, you gotta love headers. We all know Duff loves headers, don't you? Not so much. But also while we're in here, let's admire the paint job. They did a real great job on the jams. Did the bottom of the trunk. That's something to look for if you're ever looking at a car that's been repainted a different color, especially. Make sure they did the jams, because that's a lot of work, apparently, because nobody does it. And then they even painted the inside of the trunk the proper black. And then on these cars also look to see if the quarters have been replaced. Let's check. Oh yeah, they're seamed way up top here, which is fine. They put full quarters on it. There's the tag right there from the replacement quarter panel that they put on it even. Still got the tape over the holes for the bumper where they kept the red paint from flying into the inside of the trunk when they painted it. Yep, this one was seamed up here at the body line as well. It's really rare to see a muscle car or any car of this vintage that hasn't had quarter panels replaced, but you want to check to see how they did it, and these guys look like they did a pretty decent job of it. I mean, the best way to do it is to do a full quarter and then do it at the factory seams, or to butt weld it, in my opinion. This one's lap welded, but I think they did a pretty good job, and it was done quite a few years ago, so if they did it improperly, it should be showing by now. So, pretty dang solid car for what it is, but there's better ones out there for sure, but there's a heck of a lot worse ones out there, especially when you are dealing with muscle cars. And that is why I bought that car. Not only because it had an LS in it, but because it's clearly not hiding any sins, so we know exactly what we're getting. And yes, it needs quarters and floor pans and everything else like they all do. There's nothing hidden underneath that dull primer and paint. You're just not having it today, are you? You're just sick of Camaros and headers and paint and bodywork. Yeah, me too. So what we ended up doing on the clutch was adjusting it out, which moved the clutch pedal up, which made it align with the brake pedal so that they're both sitting even, but also the brake pedal doesn't quite sit where I want it to. Also the brake light switch I don't like. There's like some rubber wrapped around the brake pedal to make it go on and off. And long story short, check these pedals out. They need a rebuild. They're pretty floppy. It needs some new bushings in there. And check out the gas pedal. That thing is super flopped out. So good news is you can buy all this stuff for Camaros. Bad, oh my gosh. The good news is you can buy all this stuff for Camaros. The bad news is, in my experience, taking pedals apart and putting the bushings in it is not fun. Laying under the dash in general is not fun. And I just got done doing a bunch of that. So I think we're going to call it good. If he wants to take it further, he can bring it back or he can do it himself. But anyway, it's driving a lot better now. So there you go. A lot of the things to look for when you're buying a muscle car or any car. If you're buying any car with a brake pedal and or a clutch pedal, see how sloppy they are, because new pedals are super expensive and they're kind of a pain in the butt to put in, and it's not really hard, but it's just, I don't know, it's not fun. Took the front license plate off. Of course, that was held on with plumber's tape. Why wouldn't it be? Owned by a plumber. Speaking of plumbers, check that out. All of the DD Speed Shop plumbing schmoo that's stuck all over that thing. So new thermostat housing on there. Thermostat was working and it had like a big fancy Robert Shaw high flow, so we just put that back in there. But yeah, it's the good stuff. Get the good stuff.
Oh, almost got me.
Anyway, this is going straight in the dumpster. Well, folks, it's been a while since I've been in the backseat of a Camaro, and it would take a lot of ambition to do things back here, but anyway, I think that's where we're going to wrap this thing up. We got this thing about as good as we're going to get it. We got it a lot better. We made the drive shaft better. We made the electrical better. We got the brakes better. We got the clutch better. This thing is a whole lot better. It started out as a really good car. Hopefully you got some pointers of things to look for if you're looking at a Camaro or any muscle car or just any old car in general that you're looking to pay some good money for. Look for areas of rust, look for terrible wiring, look for drive shafts that are clocked improperly. Look for leaks around the pinion seal and around the axle seals and the wheel cylinders and stuff like that. So hopefully we gave you some pointers. We probably had 25 or 30 hours worth of labor into this thing, so we did a lot of work to this thing in a short amount of time. So this car should be good to go for Andy to put many more miles on. He told us to do some burnouts. We did some burnouts, and this car definitely needs some springs. Being a monoleaf, I'm guessing it was a 6-cylinder car, so this car either needs a 4-link or coilovers, or needs a pack of springs, or maybe just some new springs, or who knows, maybe slapper bars or traction bars to fix it. This car would have the right look with some chrome traction bars on the back. But anyway, he plans on putting some different wheels on it, maybe adjusting the stance. I think he wants to put a 2-wheel peel in the back, a limited slip. He doesn't know what gears he wants to go with. He doesn't know if he's going to keep this transmission and engine in here, but I feel like he should stick with this engine tranny. It's a pretty good setup. I think I'm going to give him some recommendations on, you know, maybe reworking the clutch, sealing up the firewall, getting the right shifter handle on it, getting a radio in it, getting the fuel gauge. There's plenty of things that can be done to this thing, but he should be able to enjoy it this summer, and that is the biggest thing. So we're going to wrap this up here. Thank you very much for watching. I know you guys like the muscle car stuff. We got to do some work to the old Roadrunner. One of these days we got to get the lights working on that and get another seat in it and all the fun muscle car stuff on that one. And then we'll go do mullet muscle car stuff in that car. So thank you very much for watching. Go check out the other videos. Like, share, comment, subscribe. And remember, doesn't matter how you get it done, as long as you're having fun. Being in the back of a Camaro is not as fun as I remembered it. We're going to be regular scheduled shenanigans to bring you this announcement. We are giving this pickup away. You got now through June 16th, so you got a couple weeks left. Head on over to mortske.com for more details, but the gist of it is, for every $1 you spend gets you one chance at winning this thing, the Slob. It's LS swapped. It's got a 5-speed. It's got 20-inch wheels. It's lowered. It is freaking awesome. If you don't want this and you win it, you get
$20,000 cash.
If you don't win it, you could be a first prize runner-up. We're giving $100 a piece to 5 individuals. So head over to mortske.com now through June 16th for more details.
How much room you got back there?
None of it. I'm glad there's nobody in front of me or beside me, because they would have to have skinny knees. This is, yeah, I can't even, yeah, if I try to sit up, it's not good. They might as well just call these Corvettes two-seaters. Did anybody notice that there's a block of wood holding the seat up? Also, I noticed that his door handles are not matching. I think that's the right one, and I think that's a newer one.